Hi students, welcome to chapter 6 of retailing. This chapter is one that I think is kind of cool because it's about technology, and I like technology a lot. So let's talk about some aspects of technology that are being used in retail. So the first thing I want to sort of make a differentiation is the difference between data and information. So we can collect a lot of data. You can look at the news, you can collect facts, you can get figures and numbers, but if it's just unrelated to anything else, it's not very useful. On the other hand, when we're talking about information, information is something that takes that data and makes it useful. And we have to have information to make good decisions. Just collecting data doesn't help us. I mean, it's a start, but it's not going to answer our questions. We need to turn it into information and then use that information, that wisdom, using the data properly to be able to make some decisions. And that decision-making process is both this aspect of planning and getting information, but it also can be partially gut reactions. People have a lot of experience. It's in the back of your head, and so sometimes gut reaction does come into it as well. Let's talk about some abbreviations. There's a lot of three-letter acronyms, four-letter acronyms in this chapter. So the first one here is RIS, which is Retail Information Systems. It's the overall backbone, electronic backbone that we're talking about when it comes to computers and operations that we're going to be using them for to be able to run our business. One of the points that the book makes that you want to have it general enough that it's usable in a lot of different areas, but specific enough that it's going to be able to answer the questions that we need to answer. A lot of the time, these retail information systems are used by multi-channel retailers, meaning they have a lot of different ways they can go, and it helps them with the real-time decision making. So they can do something online, they can have look at brick and mortar, they might have one of those kiosks or things that are temporary. All that sort of stuff will be examples of different channels, and they get the information, the data fed back to them. It's organized by the RIS, and it's able to then be used to help them make decisions. And it can really provide a competitive advantage. One of the major competitive advantages, for instance, that Walmart has is, believe it or not, it's their IT system. Okay. UPC code, another acronym, UPC code. We've all seen these. You've seen this where you go to the store. Maybe you're checking out on your own and you have to scan things, and you got to get that, you got to get it just right to take the code. So UPC stands for Universal Product Code, and it's a standard way of being able to identify the products. The fact that it's a plum and not an apricot if it's a fruit. It also gives price verification, and whatever sales support is needed after that would also be tied into the system when that's scanned through. And the quality of it is important. You want to have it look right. If it's all wrinkled or if it's fuzzy edges, it's not going to necessarily take properly. They also have, part of it is also company identifiers have actually built their own in, so their own aspects into it so that they can track it. Maybe the producer has actually put them in there. The additional numbers are what would be called, would help them to be able to identify the SKU, which is what the abbreviation is for a stock keeping unit. So a lot of the time in retail stores, when it comes to tangibles, you're going to have SKUs. Things are going to be denominated by these stock keeping units, these SKUs. That's going to be a part of the number on the UPC. And these things aren't free. I mean, UPC is not free, and so again, the participation in this is going to vary with the size of the retailer. POS means point of sales, and that's usually a terminal. It's usually a workstation. Think about when you check out at a store or when you're getting a service and they're sitting there behind the counter and they've got something on a screen. That's that point of sale service, point of sale terminal that's helping you out with your service or with your purchase of a tangible. It helps increase the speed of the transaction. It reduces the errors. And it could be things also like printers and strip readers and modems and stuff like that would all be part of that point of sale terminal. RFID. So an RFID is a radio frequency identification. And it's a lot like a barcode, except that you don't have to scan it. It doesn't have to be seen by anything. And it doesn't require a human. A lot of the time, it's used for mass scanning. You may have a bunch of objects on a pallet, and you can just scan the whole pallet. That pallet needs to go here, and then once it gets there, it needs to be sent to these different departments. Usually what we're talking about when an RFID tag, it's an antenna, a transceiver, and a tag. And sometimes you'll even see these are very small. They can be like a little patch that's even put on things. sometimes you buy electronics, small headphones or something, you might find an RFID tag on there. The antenna emits a radio signals, and the tag is activated, and then the transceiver picks up the data and sends it to the computer telling you what's there. Let's talk about another form of technology that's quite often used, self-checkout. So, 20 years ago, a couple decades ago, only 6% of grocery stores had self-checkout systems. In 2003, it was 30%. By 2006, it was 75%. I would say it's more than that now. Interestingly, it costs high five figures, low six figures for 4 checkout lanes, but they usually get the money back right away because they're not paying employees. One of the most expensive things that you have in your business is your employees. Your IT and your employees are, generally speaking, two of your most expensive things. And if you don't have employees, and you have 1 rather than 4 for 4 terminals, you're saving yourself some money. The chapter then talks about the marketing research process. In this case, we're looking for what is out there and defining some kind of marketing opportunity or defining some kind of problem and figuring out what we can do to get around this problem. And this is a process that retailers go through to be able to research, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, what do we need to do in marketing. And the chapter then outlines for you, you can see it here, it outlines for you the different areas that need to be covered as you go through and sampling and whatnot. If you have statistics, you've had a statistics class, you know what sampling, that's the kind of thing that you might be doing and saving in the database. A sub-function of marketing research is market research. So you get rid of the ing, market research. In this case, the retailer is just concerned about information about their own markets and potential markets. Okay, it's not very theoretical. It's much more practical. Okay, and it's a lot easier to conduct. Okay, it doesn't answer all of our questions. It does maybe not give us the overall direction we need to have, but it can help us on a day-to-day issue with what we've got with our markets. And in this case, we also want to talk about briefly here secondary and primary dating. So what am I using to do my marketing research or my market research, particularly market research? Secondary data versus primary data. What's the difference between the two? What is the difference between the two? Primary data is when I go out and I actually come up with what I need. Secondary data is when I go out and I look for things that are similar to what I need. So let's just say if I did my own survey myself, that would be primary data. That's hard to do. What about if somebody has posted a survey that they had conducted a year ago online, and it's free, I can just go download it? That's secondary data. Or maybe it's not free and I pay another firm to do it. That's secondary data. It may not have been exact design of a survey I wanted, but it's close enough. Secondary data. Okay, does that make sense to you? So again, you can see here some are easier or harder to obtain, the cost, how accurate they could be, is it really kind of just my specific problem, or is this more generalized, etc. Okay, so think about primary and secondary data when you're taking the quiz and when you're thinking through how do I find information, what kind of information am I going to use. Primary data has some additional layer of difficulties. We got to have some resolution for questions that might arise regarding, is my sample accurate? How am I collecting that data? Is it being analyzed correctly? Is it being reported fairly? And have I really captured it? Have I analyzed the data properly to be able to generate a report? And that report is something that is actionable and realistic for management to be able to use. This whole idea of data collection, you might have surveys, you may have questionnaires, you may have observation, you may have experiments that you're using. So if you think about it, how many people lie on surveys, right? How many of you have ever answered a phone call? You get, everybody's got their cell now, and you look at it, it says number unknown, or it's unknown to you, 800 number or something like that. I don't take them. I'll let it go in a voicemail. And if it's a survey, I don't answer. I can't even think of the last time I answered a survey. I think the last time I did a survey was when my kids were little. I was at a mall, and they were looking for a parent with child, and they paid my daughter $2 to take the survey, which took like 5 minutes. So I don't know if it was cost effective for me, but she got $2 out of it, which she promptly wasted on candy. But she filled out, or was helped answer the questions the man was giving us. Technology is used often in this marketing research. We can go out on the web, we can find things, we can use SurveyMonkey, we can use search directories, we can use specialized, maybe industry-centric kind of search engines that are out there or databases that are out there.